Okay, good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. I'd like to call the regular school committee meeting to order. Today is May 25th, 2021, and we are starting our meeting tonight at 7:14. We had a budget meeting prior to the regular committee meeting tonight. We are being broadcast live on Peabody Access TV, as we always are, and we are, now that we are open to the public, we will still, though, continue the real-time public participation through Zoom virtual meeting software for remote access. The application will allow users to view the meeting and make a comment during public participation. And as we have in the past, please raise your hand, use the button to raise your hand, and Dr. Vidala and I will recognize you during that time in public participation. I'd like to start the meeting with a call to order. Before we go to a moment of silence, I did want to ask that we dedicate the moment of silence and think of the family of Danny Marquis. Danny, many of you are familiar to. Danny was a member of our school building committee for the construction of the Higgins Middle School, had a wonderful background in the trades, and was able to bring a lot of important information to those committee meetings, which resulted in this beautiful building. He passed away after a battle with cancer, and somebody who I thought a great deal of, and I know a number of people who served on the committee know he contributed a great deal. In addition to that, Danny was heavily involved in youth sports, in particular baseball, and he was one of the assistant coaches on the 2009 World Series representatives from the city of Peabody that went to the Little League World Series. Just a person who cared deeply for the city and put a lot of time into our community. So I asked, as we stand, that we think of Danny Marquis and his family. Okay, thank you, and please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have some minutes for approval tonight. First one is the May 11, 2021 Committee of the Whole under the auspice of the Finance Subcommittee meeting. Not sure what that means, but there was a committee meeting on May 11, 2021. Open it up for discussion.
Motion to approve May 11th committee minutes of the Finance Subcommittee meeting.
Okay, you've heard the motion for approval of the May 11, 2021 Committee of the Whole minutes. Seconded, motion was made by Mrs. Carpenter, seconded by Mrs. Dunn. On the motion, Mr. Huckman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm trying to find out where it is in the minutes, but there was just I think a typo. We had talked about dates for bringing the budget to the city council, and Ms. Harris, I think, wrote May 22nd instead of June 22nd. I can't find the exact location, but I'll get it to her if we can just make that amendment.
Absolutely.
So amended.
With that amendment, roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Griffin Dunn?
Yes.
And Mr. Onotis?
Yes.
Terrific. And I do want to mention, as typical at our meeting, Leanna Harris, our school committee recording secretary, is taking the minutes for the meeting. We also have minutes from the May 11, 2021 regular school committee meeting. Under
Motion
no
to
auspice.
No auspice. Motion to accept and approve regular school committee meeting minutes of May 11th, 2021. Second.
Heard the motion by Mrs. Carpenter for approval of the May 11, 2021 regular school committee meeting, seconded by Mrs. Dunn. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Griffin Dunn?
Yes.
And Mr. Onotis?
Yes.
Thank you. And then also the May 18, 2021 FY22 budget meeting.
Motion to accept and approve May 18th, 2021 FY22 budget meeting.
Mr.
Second.
Mayor? Second. That's where the error is.
Is
I
on
found it,
those
yeah.
minutes?
So it's in those minutes.
Okay, so motion was made by Mrs. Carpenter for approval of the May 18, 2021 FY22 budget meeting, seconded by Mr. Hockman. With that amendment, just to make sure that that date is clear.
It's on page 3, the second to last paragraph, first sentence.
Okay, with that amendment? Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Griffin Dunn?
Yes.
And Mr. Onotis?
Yes.
Thank you. Next is approval of bills. Mrs. Carpenter, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 4770 dated May 25th, 2021, in the amount of $33,174.23, subject to audit.
Second.
Thank you. You've heard the motion for approval of warrant number 4770. Motion made by Mrs. Carpenter, seconded by Mr. Olympio. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Griffin Dunn?
Yes.
And Mr. Onotis?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 4774 dated May 25th, 2021, in the amount of $2,368,350.69, subject to audit.
Second.
Thank you. You've heard the motion by Mrs. Carpenter for approval of warrant number 4774, seconded by Mr. Olympio. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes,
Ms. Griffin Dunn?
Yes.
And Mr. Onotis?
Yes.
that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. Next item, continued business. Mrs. Dunn, I'd like to turn it over to you for any update on the Welch School MSBA project.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Welch School project is in the midst of meetings, numerous meetings. We have set a weekly meeting for the owners, the architects, the construction manager. They're called the OAC meeting. It's a small group that meets every week now to go over the details of the project. There are also numerous meetings occurring on the various aspects of the project. There have been meetings about the exterior finishes. This week there'll be interior finish work, discussions. The staff have met with the cafeteria staff and cafeteria staff at the Welch so that they could go over any of the particulars of that recommended work. And it's really very intense. There will be a Welch School Building Committee meeting coming. We have not yet scheduled that, only because we're checking. There is a possibility of trying to plan the another community meeting, and we'll be getting that out. So we're going to put that all together in one meeting. Also, just to let all of you know, we are planning on having a joint meeting probably in August with the City Council, and that will be to inform everyone of the actual full project at that date to be prepared for submission to the MSBA. And they won't vote on our recommended schematic design until November, but we do have to submit it in September. So we're looking at trying to schedule a meeting, an informational meeting for both boards. And again, another additional, we're looking at the 3rd and the 4th community meetings coming up. So there's a lot going on. It's still really interesting.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Any questions? All right. Appreciate those updates, as always. And we also have under continued business today the MASC annual nominations. Mrs. Dunn, anything you'd like to touch on there?
Yeah, actually, I would like to bring forward 3 recommendations for nomination by this school committee. This is for an annual award that MASC gives to people in the community. We have some catching up to do because they weren't able to have the appropriate ceremonies last year, and they will be holding those. People we had honored last year were the electric light department, as well as Dan Collins. So those are going to be rescheduled. However, for this year, I wanted to bring to you 3 separate recommendations that fit the criteria for Outstanding School Partner Awards. The 3 groups that I'm bringing forward are our public health school nurses, Sharon Cameron and all of our public health school nurses. And the reason for that is because they have always been our partners, working with us throughout the regular day-to-day operation of a school district. However, this year, they have been outstanding partners because after they finished their day at the schools, they worked all night doing contact tracing, working on the immunizations, and being true partners, especially with Sharon, giving us advice on how to interpret and implement the CDC guidelines on operating our schools. We could never have done it without them. And I think that they deserve an award to be recognized for that. It's above and beyond what they would normally go through. I have a second nomination to nominate all of our Peabody PTOs. We have 9. The high school was trying to get one started, and this year, I do have to check to see, but I don't think they were able to do what they had planned this year with a PTO at the high school, but they're working on getting one up there. But our PTOs have always worked to provide so many things to our students. They've always been great partners in supporting our education. But this year, they were a big part of the glue that kept our communities together. They worked really, really hard to make sure that everybody was being taken care of. They did a lot of activities. They were scrambling. And they're all volunteers, and they were creative. They did those parades for the kids. They had, they helped to sponsor teacher parades, but they did all kinds of different activities that could be done socially distanced. They made sure that things were being videoed so that people who couldn't go could see it. They certainly honored our staff during Teacher Appreciation Week, which they normally do anyway, but this year they did a little bit more just to be able to pull everyone together. A lot of the members, and I have to write this better for the award, but a lot of the members, they were a cross-section of our school families. They were a mixture of hybrid and remote students. Those parents still stayed together. And any of the traditional fundraising they would normally do was out the window. They had to be able to really come up with some really creative ways to keep their group together, to encourage their volunteers to stay together, and to still be able to give back to the schools. And they went above and beyond, because when you think about it, they had to take care of their own families too. And yet they were still willing to give of their time and all of their resources to make sure that the kids were still going to have a special year. And they're still doing things. They are. So I thought that they also deserved an award. And then the third one, where's Jim? Oh, he was sitting right there. He's sitting there. All right. This is going to go to Peabody Access TV. They, too, have been a very good partner. They've done a lot of work for us. Yeah, turn the camera on Jim. Yeah, come over here in camera range. But this year, when you think of what was able to be accomplished, PATV went out and made sure to video so many activities. And I mean, they're always good about videoing, moving on ceremonies and graduation, all the big events, concerts. They were out there videoing all the sporting events because parents couldn't go watch. They were videoing I should say broadcasting all of those events. They certainly help us with our meetings, and that goes on and on. But during the day, we have, for example, the Welch School Building Committee. That meets during the day. It's a public meeting. It has to be public. They made sure to broadcast those meetings so that the public could see what we were doing at those meetings and be able to participate. We always kept the lines open so that, if someone wanted to call in, they were able to. And I know there are other meetings that were going on in the district during the day that they were covering. They've been very good with providing help at the high school with our visual arts department, as far as helping with equipment and, keeping kids interested, and they provide programs for our students so that the kids can really, really learn firsthand, all of the ins and outs of modern communication. But they also really concentrated this year on trying to get more kids involved because they had so many more things to cover. And they were willing to have the kids trained and take the equipment out there. And I don't know how they did it because they had to cover everything. I know they had to do things on the city side as well, but with the schools, they were with us 24/7 on all of the things going on that we needed to get out to the public. So I do need to ask for a vote on each one of these, and these are handwritten, and they definitely need more information on them. But I hope you would support me in first nominating our Peabody Public Health School nurses for the Outstanding School Partner Award from MASC. So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn, and
Second.
that's a terrific, 3 terrific suggestions. Thank you for that. Okay, motion was made by Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Amico.
Okay, and then if
Then
people
we'll
want to
just-
join in on each one, if you have comments on each
Yeah,
one.
if anybody
feel
wants
free.
to
Yeah.
add to that, I
Yeah.
thought you summarized the importance and what they did for the community extremely well. Actually, all 3 of those, I thought you did.
Yeah.
Those are terrific suggestions. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Griffin Dunn?
Yes,
And Mr. Notice?
Yes.
thank you. The next one was all of the Peabody PTOs. So I'd like to make a motion that all of the Peabody PTOs, be nominated as outstanding school partners for the MASC award. So moved.
Heard the motion by Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Amico. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter? Ms. Griffin Dunn?
Yes.
And
Yes.
Mr. Notice?
Yes.
And I do have the names of all of the PTO officers, and I'm going to check with MASC. I don't know if they'd be able to put it on each, an award. I'm going to check on it, but if we're able to, I will have each school president named in the least. If they do individual awards, then we'll put all of those on. Okay. And then the third one, last but not least, Peabody Access TV. I would like to make a nomination that Peabody Access TV be nominated for as an outstanding school partner under the MASC awards. So moved.
Second.
Terrific. You heard the motion by Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Amico. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hockman? Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Miko? Ms. Carpenter? Ms. Griffin Dunn?
Yes,
And Mr. Notice?
Yes.
thank you very much. I will work with Ms. Marcarelli and get these done and submitted.
Great. Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. That was wonderful. Okay, Superintendent's report. Dr. Vidal, I'll turn it over. Oh, I'm sorry. Before we go to the Superintendent's report, Mr. Miko?
Thank you. Through the chair to Ms. Dunn. Ms. Dunn, would you happen to have, those are incredible 3 selections, and I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I'm glad you brought those forward. When's the deadline on those nominations? And I was wondering if you would be able to take a couple from me right now, if that were possible. I have a couple of groups that I think are well-deserving as well. I don't know if that's something that
Yep.
I can do.
We can
Dead-
do that. Mhm.
Deadline for submittal is June 1st.
June
Okay.
1st, yeah.
So I'll just maybe speak to you afterwards. Thank you, appreciate it.
Oh, well, no, if you want to bring them up tonight.
Oh, I'd love to bring them up.
Yeah, because, I mean, we would have to take a vote on it
Okay,
so that they can be submitted.
would
Yeah.
that be okay? All right, I'd
Yeah.
love to bring them up tonight. Looking back at the whole COVID situation and the testing that took place here at the Higgins Middle School, I'd have to put Peabody first responders in that. On cold nights, we had police, fire, nurses, and I know you mentioned nurses, and we had the ambulance company down the street, I believe, was it Cataldo? Cataldo. I just think the incredible work that they did on those frigid nights, and the lines were, I live up here on James Street, the lines were, some nights were past, you know, Perkins, down Lowell, and further, and they're out there in the cold, you know, administering the COVID tests, and not to mention what they did on a day-to-day basis. So I'd love to include Peabody's first responders, police, fire, and the ambulance people. We're lucky to have them. They're amazing, and I just think they need to be recognized, if we could.
Yeah, they
And
are.
I'd like to make that in a form of a motion.
Great.
Okay.
Motion made by Mr. Amico, seconded by Mrs. Dunn.
I'll
On the
second for
motion.
discussion.
Yep.
I'll be honest, this is to honor people who have done specific things, you know, for the schools, and they certainly do. I don't know, I was gonna bring something up after this, to be perfectly honest, because going through, there were three or four different types of awards, and the work that they did was incredible, dealing with everything through COVID. But these are more for like special things with the schools. I don't know if they would actually fit the criteria, to be honest, but it brings me to another discussion.
There were a lot of teachers and staff members and students that went through those lines getting tested through the
True.
chair. I just think that
Yeah.
it was an like I said, I got a front row view from my deck, and to see those lights of cars coming down and knowing there was hope, you know, that's what it was all about. You know, before the
absolutely.
vaccine, that's all we had was testing, and the incredible first responders that we had, they made that happen.
Yeah.
Not to mention the regular jobs that they have every day.
Yeah.
That was on top of their, you know, daily activities. I just think they were phenomenal, and they should be recognized. If
Yeah.
not there, we can recognize them.
Yeah,
Yeah, the holidays, you know, all the birthday parties and parades. I mean,
that's true, yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
it's-
if we can phrase it right, because I'll be honest, we make the nominations, MASC is the one that actually will approve it. And we can do that here, and then whatever they approve, you know, and yeah, bringing in the parades and things, anything school, school-related would be good. What I was going to bring up was, you know, these are, every year they have these, but I honestly think that we have a larger project ahead of us. And it's a history project. There are a lot of people to honor in the whole city. Oftentimes, if you go around, and I mean, you're a history teacher, so you know, you see a plaque honoring an event. And what I wanted to bring up, and it's more of, not necessarily limited to a school, but it is more of a city thing. I actually think we need to look into creating a plaque memorializing the pandemic and Peabody's response to it. And it might sound very odd to ask for that now, but 100 years from now, that plaque's going to be important. And I think we do have a lot of people through the whole community that need to be honored and you know, put up on a bronze plaque, maybe at City Hall, commemorating the pandemic, not to celebrate it, but to make sure it's memorialized. And I don't know how to express it, and it definitely needs more discussion, because it's not just a school thing. But yeah, as far as this nomination for our first responders, definitely, we can put that together and submit it.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. On the motion, Mr. Hockman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, Ms. Dunn, thank you for those three fantastic nominations that you brought up, and Mr. Amico, spot on here. we opened up the largest school district in the Commonwealth in a hybrid model in September of 2020. We closed for 1 week, and that week was precautionary in January of 2021. If it wasn't for all those first responders doing all the testing, keeping folks who were positive out of our schools, we couldn't have accomplished that. So I think that this is a prime opportunity to recognize those folks that have given back to our school district this year, and I think that we can easily find language that fits within the parameters of this, so
Yeah.
I would absolutely support this.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Okay, roll call vote, please, on that motion?
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Mico?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Griffin Dunn?
Yes.
And Mr. Onotis?
Yes.
Thank you. Turn it back to you, Mr. Miko.
Through the chair, and I'll bring this date back. It was a date that hopefully we'll never have to see again, March 13th, that Friday. I got a call from Mr. Arnottis, and he said, you need to come down to the Higgins, we need some help, and the cafeteria workers were scrambling and working hard, and Dr. Lord shows up, and he did the same. We were scrambling. We knew we were shut down for 2 weeks, and we were looking for food. Literally, we were looking for food to feed our kids. And Dr. Lord stepped up, Mr. Arnottis, the cafeteria worker, stepped up, and then we made a couple more phone calls, and an organization stepped up in the city, Citizens In, and they really stepped up during COVID. As we know, we still have food insecurity without the pandemic, and it was so prevalent during that pandemic. Citizens In, I would love to nominate Citizens In and the No Child Goes Hungry program for all the backpacks that they put out through the city. It was an amazing thing to see. We had kids who weren't coming to school who were not eating. We have to realize that, you know, those of us who are fortunate enough to have food in our refrigerators and money to spend on food, some of our kids, the only meal that they get is the breakfast meal that they get here at school and the lunch meal that they get here in school, and we're talking 2021. It's sad. We had people stepping up, Citizens In with Corey Jackson, and the No Child Goes Hungry backpack program, which Mr. Hockman is a part of, and he has a host of volunteers that fill backpacks with nutritious food for kids on weekends. I just don't see how we can't nominate that group of people for helping feeding our kids during a pandemic. So I'll make that in a form of motion.
Thank you, Mr. Miko. Seconded by, you've heard the motion by Mr. Miko, seconded by Mr. Arnottis. And roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hockman?
Present.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Mico?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Griffin Dunn?
Yes.
And Mr. Onotis?
Yes.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Miko. Two excellent suggestions as well. I think both of you really hit with the groups that have really stepped up, so I appreciate that. I'm not sure where we'd be without all of those volunteers and committees and groups that supported the city of Peabody and our kids, so that's terrific. Okay, let's go to our superintendent's report. Dr. Vidal, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, one other thing, continuing business, statement of interest,
Oh, okay, do we want to take that up now?
whichever.
Okay. Mrs. Dunn, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. This, first I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules to bring forward two statements of interest that were recommended to us by the building committee at our last meeting. So, a motion to suspend the rules to put these into this evening's agenda. They were mentioned in our minutes, but they were mistakenly left off the agenda for tonight, and we are under a deadline.
Okay, the motion was made to move forward on the suspension of rules on the statement of interest.
No objection.
Okay, no objections? Excellent. Motion made by Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Arnottis. Everyone's in favor?
Okay.
Mrs. Dunn?
Okay, so what we need to do tonight is, we need to approve the motion seeking to submit a statement of interest for the Center School project and for Peabody Veterans Memorial High School project. These need to be voted on this evening so that we can get them into the city council's hands in time for submission of June 25th. So, taking the vote tonight, over the next few weeks, those statements, the actual, the text, and they're really very, very involved. Those will be reviewed and updated and prepared, ready to submit on the 25th. But we do have to have the city council vote on them as well. So, okay. So, Mr. Rico, go ahead. Yeah.
Through the chair, I'd like to make a motion by the Peabody School Committee move to submit the following statement of interest to the MSBA regarding the center school. Resolved, having convened in an open meeting on May 25th, 2021, prior to the SOI submission closing date, the school committee of the City of Peabody, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest formed dated June 25th, 2021, for the center school located at 18 Irving Street, Peabody, Massachusetts, which describes and explains the following deficiencies in the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. The MSBA priority selected is priority number 7, replacement and renovation of or addition to obsolete buildings in order to provide for a full range of programs consistent with state and approved local requirements. The specific objective of this SOI is to partner with the MSBA in a feasibility study for the replacement of the center school. The educational deficits of the center school are articulated in the center school SOI and include the need for gym space, cafeteria space, food service servery, and kitchen space. Much needed upgrades to classrooms, meeting rooms, electrical, plumbing, and HVAC systems. And the school committee hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the city to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Miko. You've heard the motion by Mr. Miko, seconded by Mrs. Dunn. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Griffin Dunn?
Yes.
And Mr. Onotis?
Yes.
I would like to ask the indulgence of the school committee and allow Mr. Onotis to make the motion for a new high school, seeing as how you are the youngest serving graduate on the board right now. So go for it.
Just by a few years, I'm the youngest serving graduate.
Oh, what a politician.
I'm not even running for anything. What's the point? So moved. Resolved, having convened in an open meeting on May 25th, 2021, prior to the SOI submission closing date, the school committee of the City of Peabody, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form dated June 25th, 2021, for the Peabody Veterans Memorial High School, located at 485 Lowell Street, Peabody, Massachusetts, which describes and explains the following deficiencies in the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. The MSBA priority selected is priority number 7, replacement and renovation of or addition to obsolete buildings in order to provide for a full range of programs consistent with state and approved local requirements. The specific objective of the SOI is to partner with the MSBA in a feasibility study for the replacement of the Peabody Veterans Memorial High School. The educational deficits of the Peabody Veterans Memorial High School are articulated in the Peabody Veterans Memorial High School SOI and included in the need for much-needed upgrades to classrooms, science areas, industrial arts, classrooms, meeting rooms, electrical, plumbing, and HVAC systems, energy efficiencies, building envelope, disability accessibility, and security considerations. And the school committee hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the city to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. So moved.
You've heard the motion by Mr. Arnottis, seconded by Mr.
Second.
Olympio. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Amico? Ms. Carpenter? Ms. Griffin Dunn?
Yes.
And Mr. Arnottis?
Yes.
Terrific. So we will be submitting those to the city council to be placed on their agenda, and I will certainly notify the school committee and our administration when that will be heard by the council, certainly before June 25th.
Yep.
Okay, now we will go to Superintendent's report. Dr. Vidal, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a brief agenda tonight. We'll discuss summer programs, the Parent Information Center for this summer, the CTE After Dark program, and some updates on the health and safety protocols. So we have a number of summer programs. Specifically, I wanted just to show all the summer programs that would be running, but also just give a quick note about the high school. We'll be running credit recovery in 2 different sessions. They'll be running a big credit recovery for the 12th graders in June in order to help students that may have missed graduation by a credit or 2 and be able to recover those credits for a summer graduation. And they'll also be running a big comprehensive summer program, a credit recovery for 9th grade through 11th grade. What's a little bit unique about this year is they have asked to waive they have a policy that a student needs to achieve at least a score of a 50 in order to take credit recovery, and this year, because of the pandemic, we're looking to waive that requirement and just open it up to everyone. So, I wanted to bring that to the committee, I'm assuming that there's not any objections to that. We want to include as many kids as we can, re-engage them, and get as many kids into the summer program as possible. They're also doing English learner programs and extended school year. So the high school will be hopping this summer. Higgins is doing an ELL program and a small program for 4 kids only. The FKO program that's running at the Higgins and the Welch is going to include a comprehensive academic program for the first time that is grant funded through a program that the governor is offering, and they'll be hiring our teachers to be able to provide some academics for the kids as well. So we'll be able to do that. Brown is again running our ESY program, and then we have 2 programs this year at the Carroll. The English Learners Program, and then we're also funding a reading program for students, just to make sure we're providing a little bit of recovery as well. In addition to these, we have our summer reading program that we'll be pushing out some information on, and for all of our K-5 students, we'll be providing them with some information about Freckle and Myon and some different activities that they can use electronically because they'll be taking their Chromebooks home for the summer. So we have quite a bit of information going out, and we have a lot of summer programs. Our schools will be hopping over the summer. We're also partnering with the rec department and seeing a big increase in the number of programs that they'll offer this summer. So as things are opening up, we're really excited about that. Later in the presentation, I have some information about health and safety protocols. So as you know, we're not wearing masks outside. However, for the school year indoors, for the remainder of the school year, we will be requiring masks, and they are anticipating that the summer programs would need masks indoors through the summer, and then we're hoping that that will be lifted for next fall. So that's a little information on the summer program. And then we also have some information about our Parent Information Center, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Lord to give that information.
Thanks, Dr. Vidal. This is another opportunity that we had started a couple of years ago. The families came in and had some really positive feedback. It was a one-stop shop in the summertime for them to get their child registered, pick up their Chromebook, get their bus pass, all of that stuff. Thankfully, due to all the increased technology, all of this is online now. However, the team is going to be getting together to be available for families if they need help with it. If they need someone to sit with them and walk them through the online registration process, if they need to understand a little bit more about busing regulations, some of those details, there'll be somebody available. The food service applications, everybody's gonna have free lunch, so food, just be verifying that. We still need to do, there's some paperwork that still has to be filled out by families associated with that. Chromebook registration will be online shortly. We'll be sending out a robocall out to everyone so they're aware about that. So anyway, all of this stuff is available online. Families can still register as they have been for the last year or 2, but if they need some help, the team will be there at the Higgins in these reduced hours to assist them if they need it.
Great, thank you, Dr. Lawley. And that was something that we wanted to do last year. 2 years ago, 2 summers ago, they were able to do it. Last year, we were unable to do it, and it was really popular, so we did want to bring that back. So we're really excited about that. And having the translators available this year, I think, is also a really important piece to add to that.
Through the chair, is that going to be at the Higgins?
At the Higgins, yes. And the hours of operation here, and we'll be pushing out that information as well.
It's going out in several languages. We should have it out shortly.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a CTE After Dark program. So I'll give a little bit of history on this. I know that there is some discussion to be had. So 3 years ago, Peabody entered into a partnership with Essex Tech, and I believe the first After Dark program was a combination of the Lawrence Public Schools and Greater Lawrence Tech, where students who were enrolled in the public school district attended at night. So that's where the After Dark program came, and they were able to participate in some CTE programs that weren't offered at their school at night. And so Essex Tech entered into an agreement with some neighboring districts around, how could we offer for students who maybe weren't accepted or had changed their mind and wanted to get into some programs that maybe weren't offered. And on the North Shore, there were 4 districts that participated. So Peabody, Gloucester, Beverly, and Salem participated in the first program. And we created an MOU, and the idea was that when a student is enrolled in a CTE program, there's a differential that the state funds through Chapter 70, and that money would flow back to Essex Tech, and that's how it would be funded. So in the first year, we had 7 students enrolled, and that's how they determined the funding, is the number of students who were enrolled on October 1st. Unfortunately, only 2 of our students completed the program. The rest of the students came back. It just wasn't a good fit, and we had 2 students that first year, and we were billed for the 7. The following year, this school year, we had 5 students who enrolled in the program that we're getting billed for, and we have 3 students who have completed the program. So we've had several meetings. The mayor and I met with the other mayors, and we met with the Office of Educational Options at the Department of Education, because we're really trying to figure out, what is the barriers to this program? What are we struggling with in Peabody? And so some of the options that the kids were able to go to were construction management and plumbing, some of the things that we do not offer at Peabody High School. And so, we really tried to see if we could get more kids into CTE programs. And what ended up happening through our discussions is we realized that the students that we were sending had enrolled in some of our our CTE program. So we were already receiving that funding. So we were sending more money out without receiving any more money. And so the funding avenue that they thought was going to work for Peabody did not work. So we sort of have this unfunded piece. And so the funding became a bit of a challenge. So in the warrant today, there's an invoice that we're sending just under $30,000 to Essex Tech to fund this program, and we're wondering if this is the best use of our funds. One of the other challenges is, in the beginning, Essex Tech had a grant that they were going to transport the students to and from. That grant went away, and so we were on the hook to get kids to and from Essex Tech to be able to participate in these programs, and it's become a bit of a complicated issue as well. Making sure that we're able to transport our students from our elementary and middle schools at dismissal, and then also trying to see if we can get the students back and forth. And then the final challenge that we've had was around the scheduling of this. So they're locked into the schedule, having that consistent 7-period, not rotating schedule, so that the kids could leave and consistently be there. So through several discussions with Essex Tech, what we've realized is that this type of program, because we offer CTE in Peabody, probably is not the best program to continue with. So some of the solutions that we have identified working with the administration over at Essex Tech is to really clarify the admissions policy and the transfer process. So for example, we have 3 students who are juniors that are participating in the program, and we're going to have them finish that next year because we want them to be able to complete the program. And at this time, there's only 1 junior, rising junior, who has inquired about the program, who wants to participate and in the construction management. So we've talked to Essex Tech about allowing a transfer for that student so that he will have access to that program. However, continuing the program just doesn't seem to make sense. It has been successful in neighboring communities that don't have CTE. For example, spend a lot of time talking to Beverly Public Schools. They don't offer any CTE programs, so they have about 30 students that are participating. However, for us, we send 80 kids a year from the Higgins to Essex Tech, and so what we want to do is really try to give priority to the kids who want to go to Essex Tech in the 8th grade to programs that we don't offer. And the kids that don't get in through their admissions policy, Essex Tech has worked with us, and we're working out an MOU to be able to clarify the transfer process, and anyone that is in 9th or 10th grade and wants to transfer, they would get priority if they were going to a program that we don't offer. We would not give priority to a student who maybe wants to do cosmetology who's at Peabody because we offer cosmetology, we offer medical assisting. So we want to really reserve those spots for the transfer process to kids who are entering to programs that we don't have. That's the work that we've been doing. I know that there are a lot of questions about this, and there are some concerns from the committee. So I would like to open it up, but I wanted to give a little bit of background information on, unfortunately for us, this program hasn't yielded the 30 or 40 kids that it has in some other communities. So we're looking to phase out the program, but to create different pathways for our students so that they can participate in those programs.
Thank you. Let's open that up for discussion. Any questions? Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Vidala. Actually, I will be honest, I requested that this be discussed because it had come to my attention from a guardian who was concerned when her 9th grader went in for course selection and was informed that we were no longer participating in the CTE program, the expansion program, I'm sorry. And they really wanted this child to be able to participate. He had applied to Essex North Shore and had not been accepted, but was still interested in the trades. So I requested information and wanted to know why we had pulled out and what were the issues and what was going on. The thing that is really concerning to me is because there is such a movement now in all of society to expand vocational opportunities to students across the country, and especially here in Massachusetts. They've made a real concerted effort. The number of seats in vocational schools is limited, but this was a creative way to be able to have students participate in trade classes while getting their academics at their home school. The trade union, specifically the laborers union, has worked very hard to try to help with this. My understanding, I did not know that there was an issue with transportation because I had been told that cost was being covered. But the fact that we have students who could go into some of the courses that we don't offer in Peabody and they would still graduate with a Peabody Veterans Memorial High School diploma, but they would have vocational training. When they complete the program, they become apprentices in the union. They walk out of graduation into a job with benefits and everything. It's a huge win for students. So knowing that we have a smaller number of students interested in it, I can understand the difference between, Peabody and Beverly, but more and more communities are getting into this program. Swampscott is signing in, Salem, currently Beverly and Gloucester. Gloucester was the first, and then Beverly, and then Peabody. And the state is pouring money into this program. A few weeks ago, Governor Baker came in to announce a $15 million grant across the state. Essex North Shore got $550,000 of that, the highest amount of any other school, just to be able to do the After Dark program, and also it's also including adult education. However, just yesterday, Essex North Shore was awarded another $295,000 in grant money to continue to expand the CTE expansion program, because they know people are really looking for vocational education. And while they can't increase the number of students attending the vocational schools, this is a bit of a creative compromise to try to help students to find their way. I would still like to see us exploring ways to participate in some type of the expansion program. The labor union is still very interested in making sure that occurs. If there are issues that have caused students to drop out of that program, if it's been difficult, I'd like to look at how we can make it better on our end. The person who contacted me was told that they couldn't do it because of scheduling at the high school. And I actually thought that the schedule had changed for the better to help our own CTE program. So I was surprised to hear that that was what the guidance counselors were telling students, that, you know, we can't schedule your academics before 11 to get you on a bus to get to Essex North Shore. So that was one of the problems that I would like to see if we could look into, because that points out an issue in my mind with our schedule at the high school. I agree, no one should be in this program to go to Essex North Shore for cosmetology. We offer that here. We have programs here, but this was to cover the programs that we don't have. And those students, I think we do need to look at it. My other understanding was the money that would go to Essex North Shore was the amount that the state gives to Peabody for a vocational student. In my mind, if the student is a regular ed student, aside from other funding parameters, but if they're a regular ed student, and then we're going to be given, it's either $4,600 or $5,200 in addition under Chapter 74 funding. If that's the money that goes to Essex North Shore to pay for the vocational portion of that student's education, I honestly think that's fair, because we're not providing the vocational education. Essex is, and that's the money that would follow that student. If that student stayed in Peabody, that's the amount of money that student would get to take whatever courses we offer in our CTE program. I think that we're really missing a good opportunity here to expand our vocational opportunities for the students who do stay here in Peabody, and at least to be able to give them that additional education that they need to pursue a trade. The laborers union is one where we've got some kids that could really benefit from that connection, and now they're not going to be able to do that because we don't offer that kind of class. I would like to have a more expanded discussion going forward about our own CTE program. That's for another day, but soon. But on this one, I'm really concerned. I will tell you, it was frustrating. I sat at the press conference when the governor announced all the money going into that program and was lauding Peabody as a gateway city for its forward thinking, and I'm sitting there thinking, we just pulled out of this program. So I do think we need to look at it, and I would hope we could do something in the future to get back into that, or to have something similar to it designed for our students.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Mr. Amico?
Sure, through the chair, and I totally agree with you, Ms. Dunn. Especially with all what we're hearing with the jobs programs coming out, there are going to be a lot of construction jobs available. This country has a deficiency when it comes to bridges and roads. Bridges are falling, roads are falling apart all over the country. There are going to be a lot of people with shovels in hand and working. And I think the biggest mistake we've made in education is that we've assumed every kid is going to college. And I blame MCAS for that and other things, and we can have a discussion some other day. But if there's a kid who's 16, 17, 18 years old willing to grab a shovel and a broom and he wants to go to this program, I'd back it 100% and help fund it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amico. Mr. Arnottis?
Thank you, and I'm glad we're having this discussion. I think it's important. And I appreciate the presentation and the numbers here tonight. It does sound like you guys are attempting to do your due diligence on this, but I have extreme concerns about this. I was very proud of this program when it came about a few years ago. I know Kara had initial discussions about this, and our friends in the labor movement were very interested in helping develop this program in Peabody because it had been successful in Gloucester and in other places. You know, the original sell for this was that if you had students who may not be as academically inclined as some others and say they wanted to go into the trades, this was the program that was going to set them up for that and follow it through to an apprenticeship when they were to graduate from that program. And I can see, I see those numbers and I see that they're low, but that also begs the question of how well was this program sold to our students and offered to them and encouraged them to actually take the opportunity to look into it. And I'm not putting blame on anyone in particular because we've had a lot of transitions over the past few years, but that's a genuine question I have. It's very easy in my mind, you know, to point to the fact that, okay, well, we don't have the numbers for this, no one wanted to do it, were we selling the program to people? That's a major factor in my mind, and we've talked about it time and time again here, and I think we probably have all got an email at some point from a parent whose kid who didn't get into Essex Tech and was upset about that. We've all had those conversations and talked about workforce development and how important it is and how insane it is to pay, you know, $200,000 to go to college right now when there are plenty of people who could be successful day one out of the trades program, and these are programs that we need to encourage right now, this especially after what we just went through. And when it comes to scheduling, I'm right there with Mrs. Dunn. I heard the same comments. I mean, it really does not sit well with me that we are discouraging students because it couldn't work in a schedule. Anything can work in a schedule if we want to make it work. And then the issue of transportation, I mean, if these are the numbers we're working with, then what is that, one bus? I mean, we can find that money. We tend to find money around here when we want to find money. So I don't want to lose this program, or at least I want to see us develop something that allows this to expand and grow and at least take a shot to allow some of these kids, and kids who probably would take this program had it been explained to them and sold to them, or at least genuinely offered to them, they may have taken that opportunity. So I do appreciate this, and I hear what you're saying, that you guys have looked into this and you've had conversations, and yes, you know, I understand what we offer aside from other communities, but it is odd to me that it's not just 4 anymore. These communities are growing. We're seeing this movement towards workforce development and an expansion of CTE programs, and apparently it's not the case here in Peabody, where there are plenty of people who work in labor and construction and workforce development of those in those job sectors. So I don't want to see this go, and I think this is an important discussion. I hear what you're saying, but this is certainly one I think is worth pushing. You know, I do believe that right now.
Thank you, Mr. Arnottis.
So, thank you, Mr. Arnottis. We'll continue to look at multiple pathways for our kids, and that's our goal. And I think the frustration comes with, my kid wasn't accepted in the 8th grade. That's a problem, that many of our seats are being taken away by programs that we do offer. And if we want to expand our CTE offerings, we need to make sure we fix the admissions policy, which is preventing kids who might not be academic. And we look at the 4-year acceptance rate of colleges from Peabody High School. It's very similar at Essex North Shore Tech. Those kids are going to 4-year schools, and we need to really work together. And I'll tell you, the superintendent there is very collaborative, and she's willing to work with us, especially making sure that we identify our students and really get to know them and provide as many options as we can. So she's willing to work with us. We're willing to work with them. We're looking to get as many kids as we can into CTE. And if this isn't the right program the way it was structured, if it was being sold something that was a little bit different, we're going to find a new way to do it, an innovative way to do it, to make sure we get as many kids as we can. So, you know, for those students, we encourage them to reach out. I know Mr. Magno and Mr. Quist, the guidance director, are really working with our kids to make sure they have those opportunities. And so we'll continue to find other creative ways as well. And so I know this isn't the last discussion we'll have on this.
Yeah, and if Mrs. Dunn, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't want to interrupt you, Mr. Mayor, but definitely, we need to discuss this further. I will be honest, you all know I'm the representative from Peabody on the Essex North Shore Board. one of the most interesting things about the decisions that go into which programs to design at that school, it is all driven by the workforce, the Office of Workforce Management. Their input is huge. They look at the trends, they know where the jobs are, they know where the careers are, they know what is needed. And having been on this school committee, I would always hear about, you know, you're not preparing students for the workforce. Kids are graduating from high school and they're not ready for the workforce. And I can remember asking a business person, I said, well, what are you looking for? What skills are we not teaching children? Do they need to learn how to write a business letter or answer the telephone? What are you looking for? And they said, you have to follow the trends. And I never really completely understood what they were talking about until I got involved with Essex North Shore, and I saw how everything is driven by that data and by the needs, by the true workforce needs. The students at Essex North Shore who go on to college, and I know a lot of people get mad that the kids are taking seats away from someone who wants to be a plumber. I'm going to correct you all on that right now. It is not the overwhelming number of students who are doing that. Many of those students, the programs they're in actually require a college degree. So even though they are at a vocational technical high school, they still need to go to college for the program that they are interested in. Students who are going into the biochemical area, they take those courses at Essex North Shore. They are going to have to go to college to get a degree in biochemical or biotechnical engineering, biotechnical, I can't even remember some of the titles of things that they have to go through. And it's in line with what they're learning. It isn't just going to school to become a plumber or an auto mechanic. And I don't mean to say just. When those students graduate, they go on to get further certifications. They have additional educational requirements. When we have our discussion about our own CTE program, I'm gonna ask for some numbers. I'll tell you right now what I want to see. I want to see what our school district has for numbers of students who are enrolled in the early college program, because that's a pipeline for kids, and it isn't necessarily to a four-year college. It's also to North Shore Community College, because there are a lot of programs that students can go into at the community college level, and there's a lot of opportunities that are out there for students. And if we can help them get to it, if we need to provide a bus, well then, let's find the money for a bus. So it all goes hand in hand with getting our students ready for whatever their future is. When they graduate, being able to make sure they're ready for the opportunities that exist out there. And I know that people are upset when their students don't get into Essex North Shore, but I will tell you this also, and it is not because, and I'm not biased. The whole controversy going on in the state, and you've read about it, there are some schools that have been very upset, or areas in the state that are very upset with the admissions policies that certain schools follow. The one that Essex North Shore follows is probably the most comprehensive. No other school interviews every single student that applies. Essex North Shore does. They interview every single student. So this year, I don't know whether it was 1,500 or 1,800 interviews that they conducted, but they do those every year. And one of the problems in the past was not informing students about vocational programs. That has been improved. They do come out and speak to the students at the middle schools throughout Essex County. But one of the problems with this program, they're looking into it to figure out, this past year was a real difficult year to be able to get the word out, to be able to meet with students. So there is a gap in the education of people who may have wanted to be in that program. And then those who basically kind of found it on their own during the, course selection, that was when they found out that this was not going to go on. But I would be curious to see how many people did express interest and then, were not able to pursue that, because by the point our schedules were being selected, we were out of the program. And I think that's something to look at too, because it was trying to grow. And it's definitely a program that we don't offer here at Peabody High. But it was something to kind of expand their opportunities. So I'll have another list of questions and I'll submit them. This is a big discussion and it does need to go forward. And I do also, just so you know, I have the figure. This year, the charge per student was $4,896.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn, and I just have a couple very brief comments. This is certainly a topic that I have strongly spoken about in the past, and I certainly was a leading proponent at the time to go into this program. There's always been a great source of frustration to get those calls, and I think Mr. Arnottis referenced it, that we all get them when there's students that are really looking to pursue a career in the trades and they don't get into Essex Tech. And, I've referred to them in the past as lost students, and although we do some incredible things with our own CTE programs, there's just ones we just don't offer or can't offer at this time. So I was actually pretty surprised by the low numbers. I was disheartened to see the low numbers. I thought when initially this came forward, there was a great deal of interest, and then for whatever the reasons may be, the numbers just aren't there right now, and it's kind of disheartening. But I am hopeful, and I know Dr. Vidal has spoken to me about it in the past. I just don't want to close the book on this. This is an extremely important topic that's been spoken about very well by the other committee members, that we need to keep ourselves very involved in looking at trends, looking at other opportunities. Maybe it's not this program. Maybe it is another form of program that we can do with Essex Tech. Mrs. Dunn constantly fills me in on different things that they're talking about at Essex Tech that might be able to work for us. Maybe we bring this up again to our students at some point next year to see if there might be some further interest, because I do think this year is tough to really get a full handle on what the interest may have been because of just the unfortunate events that have occurred. But we need to continue to focus in on CTE, and I think this should be, maybe not a standing issue every meeting, but one that we have a pretty serious discussion about every month or every couple of months, to just talk through some of these ideas and get further data as we continue to explore. And I know you are continuing to explore other options that we may have, because we just got to continue to try to provide opportunities and CTE opportunities for our students as best we can. So this was a little disheartening. I understand it, but I don't think any of us want to close the book on it and continue to pursue all options. So let's in the very near future, put this on the agenda again and continue discussions on it. Okay.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, and our final agenda, we have a little bit of good news here. So for the first time, we're smiling about health and safety updates and safety protocols. I did want to inform the committee that last week on May 18th, we announced that there were no masks outdoors, so drop-off, pickup, recess, and outdoor classes. Students and faculty still do not have to wear masks outside. Adults and students are still wearing masks indoors, as I mentioned. That'll go through the end of the school year, and it's likely to go into the summer. But we are hoping to, when we return to school in the fall, that we would not have that. One of the biggest surprises and the things that I'm happy about is, since that May 18th date, we've only had one positive case. It was a remote student in our schools since May 18th. So that's a full week. It's the first time we've gone since September that long. And so no one in our schools. And so we've talked a little bit about the health department of why is this. A number of students are participating in our vaccine clinics, a number of members of our community, as the mayor has spoken about. We have a large number in our community that have gotten the vaccine, and I think, you know, we're seeing finally that the numbers in the community are coming down. I did mention we had our vaccine clinic at the high school last week for students. They received, interested students received their first dose on May 20th, and they'll have a second dose on June 15th. Higgins welcomed today any student that wanted to get vaccinated in school, and we also have a number of students who are getting vaccinated on their own. And so, you know, again, it's completely voluntary. If it's something that a family wants to do, we are just offering that to those families. And, you know, really we're excited about less restrictions for the graduation and moving on ceremonies. I know that our senior group meets on Tuesday nights, the senior parents, and they've really started to expand the opportunities for graduation, and they're really excited about some of those things. I was able to visit the senior barbecue today, which was on the football field and underneath the school. They grilled for all the kids, and it was just so nice to see the entire senior class out there smiling, engaging with each other. They had you know, different lawn games, cornhole, spike ball. They had volleyball going. They had a DJ, and it was just really enjoyable for the kids, and they were all there. And it was really nice, and there's an air of excitement about the remainder of the senior activities. And they're looking forward that, you know, I've never heard of kids looking forward to practice for graduation, but they're actually going to have some in-person practices next week, and the kids are excited about it. So, you know, we're really happy about this, and, you know, it's been a long time coming, so it was really good to see a lot of smiling faces out there today. And so with that, that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Vidala. Mrs. Carpenter on that report?
Thank you. Through the chair, Dr. Vidala, could you please give the committee an update on how the graduation will look? Are we going to look exactly like we did, say, 3 years ago, 2 years ago?
It'll look more like it was 2 and 3 years ago. I know they have some ideas. They've run it by their committee. They have asked me, they'd like to do a couple different things, and one of which is they wanted to put it out to the school committee. If the school committee would like to hand out diplomas this year, they'd like to incorporate that because they feel like the committee's been so just so supportive of in-person learning and getting our kids back. They wanted to figure out a way to get the committee, and you know, I've seen other graduations where the committee is up on the stage handing out diplomas. So I'm telling you, there's some ideas where we take our time, and you know.
No offense, Ted, no offense.
Absolutely love that.
Together.
I am going to fight tooth and nail not to give that up.
So we would be up there together, and it would be a very unifying thing. So the mayor could be the one who's right there, but we'd like to maybe see the committee to be involved in the process as well. But the photo op will be with the mayor, because that's a very important thing for our kids to get. But we would like to see the school committee on the stage. And so there are a couple other things that they'd like to do, bringing back a lot of the traditions that have been in there, but trying to incorporate some more inclusive pieces with the committee after all the support that they've given.
I will say that a lot of people are looking forward to having a traditional, old-fashioned, regular graduation. The mayor will get bumped off the stage at least once by me, that's for sure. So but yeah, I just, you know, I know that we were honored with your presence to help us get through our graduation last year. But to be perfectly honest with you, everything was backwards. The stage was the wrong way. So we need to flip everything back around and have a huge audience in there. And I'm looking forward to seeing things get back to normal. And I think every single day I hear something is coming back. And the kids are getting really excited. So we're looking forward to that.
Thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. And I'll entertain a motion now to have the mayor continue to give out the high school diplomas. That is not self-serving at all. I'm just wondering. No takers?
Make a motion for the mayor to lead the orchestra.
Make them sing.
I would love to perform. I wish I could. Thank you for the report. And public participation. Anyone that's identified themselves that would like to speak? Dr. Vidala?
Not from our virtual participants. I know we have a couple in the audience, but seeing none.
I'd like to point out we have an audience in person right now.
Yes, nice to see Karen Mayo John Swanson, candidate for school committee, is here. It's great. We start having people coming back to our meetings. Okay. Written communications, we do have one, a donation of $1,078 to the community high school from the Simon Youth Foundation. I know we need to take some action on that.
Motion to receive with gratitude?
Second.
Further motion by Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Arnottis. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Griffin Dunn?
Yes.
And Mr. Arnottis?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Now we'll go to subcommittee reports. Let's run through those subcommittee reports. Education, Mr. Amico?
Nothing new to report, thank you.
Thank you. Finance, Mrs. Carpenter?
Nothing new to report.
Okay, school safety, Mr.
Nothing new to report.
Thank you, Mr. Olympio. Athletics and wellness, Mr. Hockman?
Nothing new to report.
Jeez, I did that again.
Almost.
I thought I had them.
Mr.
I
Mayor,
thought
could
had
I
it
add
down.
something on that?
Yeah, please.
So I was at the girls' lacrosse game earlier, and they defeated Swampscott. I don't know what the final score was, but it was a great game. So congratulations to those girls. And Ms. Dunn had mentioned Dan Collins earlier. His daughter plays defense on that team, and she played a great game. So kudos to that group. And also, as I was walking up to the stadium, I noticed Stephanie Peters, our secretary at the high school. She was planting flowers along the side there for graduation. So kudos to her, and it was a nice gesture by her to do that. So thank you.
Thank you. And I did get some reports that despite some unruly fans at the game, there was an outstanding win. So that's terrific. Mr. Hockman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we can, through you to Mr. Arnottis, if your subcommittee could look at the equipment and uniforms for our freshman, junior varsity, and varsity teams at the high school, and maybe see what the condition of that is and if we need to address any of that.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman, for bringing that up. That was on my mind as well. I did get some reports. Thank you. Okay, quality and standards, Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have nothing to report on this evening. However, I would like to let folks know we are going to have a Quality and Standards Subcommittee meeting either between now and the next school committee meeting or prior to the next school committee meeting, because we have a request from one of the schools to plant a tree in honor of, it's actually the South School. They want to plant a tree in honor of Mrs. Pantapis outside of Paso Savante. And so following protocol, that will come to the subcommittee and then come to the full school committee at our next meeting.
Mrs. Dunn? Parent and student advisory boards? Mrs. Dunn?
Nothing to report.
Building and grounds, Mr. Hockman?
Yeah, just a brief report. At our last regular school committee meeting, I think I mentioned some improvements that were made to certain school playgrounds. I think the Burke and the Brown, and we talked about the Barbudo area at the Memorial area at the high school. And in response to that, I also did bring up the new playground at the Brown School, and in response to that, a parent reached out indicating that I didn't give proper credit to so many people who were so instrumental in the building, the development, the building, the fundraising, all the work that went into the Brown School playground, and that was not my intent at all. And I do want to say that there was a long list of people who I've learned who have been involved in that project, way far too long of a list, I think, to name. And I don't want to miss anyone either. So I just want to, that playground is now open. They had a ribbon cutting last week or the week before, I believe. No, they didn't.
We are going to be having a ribbon cutting shortly.
See, I stepped in it again. I'm sorry. I was, in any event, I do want to recognize and thank all of the people who were involved in that incredible project and the incredible amount of time, effort, money, energy, and work that went into it, and thank them all for making such a fantastic improvement to that school and making a playground that is going to be adored and loved and used by so many.
Well said, Mr. Hockman, and that was a very challenging project that people put their heart and soul into. So I'm very excited. The playground is open right now. There's still some testing we have to do because it's temporarily open, but we will be, I believe, very shortly just opening it fully. And at that time, I really want to have a community celebration of the Brown School and the people that supported that, including this committee, our Community Preservation Committee, City Council. A lot of people put their heart and soul into that one. That was a challenging project, and we're at the very, very end. So, yeah, we're going to have a celebration. I'll certainly let everybody know. I'll be coordinating with the ladies and families who really put this together and coming up with an appropriate date for that celebration.
Just one other thing, Mr.
Yep.
Mayor. I think that there was some damage caused to one of the railings in one of the parking lots here at the Higgins over the course of the winter. That might have been a plow. If we can just at the next meeting get an update on where that stands, if it's an insurance claim we're waiting for, or where that stands. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Special Education Parent Advisory Board, Mr. Olympio.
Nothing new to report.
City Council and Legislative Delegation, Mr. Arnottis.
Nothing new to report.
And-
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, yeah, please.
If I can, through you, I believe that the Governmental Affairs Subcommittee tonight took up something called the Mullen Rule.
Okay.
If maybe we can schedule a joint meeting to talk about that and whether or not there's any applicability to the school committee, and I know, you know, and with the mayor being involved in that also, because I think that's an important subject and topic that we need to vet out, I think, at some point in the near future.
Sure, we can do that.
I think that's a good suggestion. It was prompted by some concerns with the Zoning Board of Appeals, Planning Board. They've really, particularly the Zoning Board of Appeals lately, has been really hit hard with a number of requests and continuances and things of that nature. But I do think it potentially could apply to our bodies here, the school committee, city council. So I know our city solicitor, Don Kahn, was at the meeting tonight with the city council, and we can get some updates from that meeting and certainly have a discussion, I think, at the appropriate time. Mrs. Dunn?
I actually heard a piece today. Governor Baker is extending the ability of communities to have hybrid meetings. It has been allowed under the emergency provisions because of the state of emergency caused by COVID. And those were designed to end, I want to say June. But the governor is seeking to keep those in place until the fall, and in the interim to have legislation prepared to allow, you know, a Mullen Rule type of a situation to continue, because it is something that they learned through the pandemic of how beneficial it was to be able to have meetings so available to the public by virtue of the internet. So there may be something coming that will possibly supersede the Mullen Rule with new legislation, but right now, we're still covered. Any governmental body that meets for, you know, public purposes is covered, and they are extending that.
Mrs. Dunn? And redistricting subcommittee, Mr. Hockman?
Nothing to report.
All right, I did want to report as we get to new business, and if there's any new business, please alert me. We did meet prior to today, prior to the regular meeting today, on a budget meeting. We made some progress, had a great discussion on a number of important items. We've set up the following schedule, and we'll be posting these meetings as required. We are going to be meeting next week, Wednesday, June 2nd, and Thursday, June 3rd, at 6 p.m. here at the Higgins Library. And we've set up the public hearing for the following week, Tuesday, June 8th. And that will be at 6 p.m. prior to our regular meeting at 7 p.m. I do believe that even with that schedule, we could potentially have those, still keep those dates of the 15th and the 17th with the City Council, but I will coordinate with Allison Danforth, the city clerk, Mark O'Neill, the city council president, and Peter McGinn, who's the finance chair, just to make sure those dates are set. So I'll report back to the school committee very quickly on that. But I wanted to announce that those dates are set, and we'll be posting them as required. Any new new business before a motion to adjourn?
Just a question.
Dr. Lord, let's go to.
Go
you and
right
then-
ahead.
I just want to take a minute to recognize the extraordinary job Stephanie Racine and her team did on The Wizard of Oz. It was one of the most creative shows that was fully outside, did a wonderful job. And anyway, I just want to make sure the community recognized a great program going on there. And it was really super to watch. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. Through the chair, Dr. Vidala, could we just ensure that the budget is, if it's not already done so, posted on the school website for the public to view?
Is that posted before it's approved
Generally, it's put out to the public, I
for the hearing?
Before.
Well, it does have to be put up before, prior to the public hearing because of the notice period.
We ready to post this one? I'm ready to post.
I think it's after we vote, but before the public.
Yeah, I think it's after we vote.
Entertain a motion?
Yeah. But then people in the public, because it is a public document, people can have access to it. They can request a copy. So.
I guess it's a little different because generally it's available and,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess.
I don't know. I think it could be posted, but it would have to say draft.
Right.
Definitely have to say draft. I don't know.
For those interested in looking at the budget, please contact Ms. Brandy Carpenter.
Mrs. Dunn, did you have a comment before we?
Actually, it wasn't new business. It was an item for the next agenda or future agenda. I'd like to see if we could begin discussing, efforts in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion in our district. That's something that's really, really important. There's a lot of work being done on that, and I think we need to stay on top of that as we go forward. So if we could have a discussion on that, it would be great.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Other items for the next agenda handled in the regular course of business.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Thank you, Mr. Hockman, seconded by Mr. Olympio. All in favor? Thank you for a good meeting.